Sentinel Prime's characterization in Transformers 1 is in my opinion the best adaptation of the character I've seen in the Transformers mythos, going from an egotistical jerk and animated to a sympathetic traitor in Dark of the Moon, and finally to a fully embracing power-hungry king with just the right amount of sass for extra flavor.
Yes, shut up.
However, while you can certainly label him as more than just power-hungry, like conniving, cunning, and most certainly charismatic,
Outstanding. I love a bot that can think for himself.
I do not think the term fascist is an accurate label of his character. Yes, you heard me, he's not a fascist, quite far from it actually, but before you rise up and prepare to rip me in two, I implore you to hear me out. Of course, before we delve into such a complex topic, we first must define what it means to be a fascist, which, for a simple definition of the term, fascism is a far-right authoritarian political ideology characterized by the suppression of individuality, dictatorial leadership, militarism, exclusion of threats to the nation's purity, ideological devotion to the rebirth of the nation, and absolute loyalty to the nation. The nation being Cybertron when I refer to the nation. Now, while you can certainly classify the first three qualifiers to Sentinel, as he does suppress the individuality of minors by plucking their transformation cogs at birth and forcing them into a life as a minor forever.
What truth? That I plucked the cogs from your newborn chests? Forced you to mine so that I could pay off the quintessons and live like a king?
Therefore stripping them of what it means to be a Cybertronian, at least on a superficial level, as there is always more than meets the eye to someone, a central theme of the film. As well as classify him as displaying dictatorial leadership by his own admission when he betrayed and killed the Primes.
Sentinel. Why?
For all the power of Cybertron.
A trait of his that is emphasized later on, with him relishing at the fact that his power is so immense that he can trick all of Iacon with no consequences.
You, all of you, are traitors. You've been working with the quintessons to sabotage my expeditions. You're the reason why I haven't found the matrix of leadership yet.
None of that is true.
Oh, trust me, it'll be very true when I'm executing you in front of all of Iacon. Because down here, the truth is what I make it.
And finally, militarism, as he will employ Cybertronians like Darkwing to aggressively enforce miners to continue mining Energon no matter their condition or individual needs.
These miners need rest and time to repair.
Sentinel Prime wants more Energon, so get back in the mines before I make you get back in.
However, of that definition, the last three qualifiers are what I believe exclude Sentinel Prime from the label of a fascist. So keep those last three in mind as I go about them one by one. The idea of excluding threats is to separate or eliminate individuals that potentially pose a threat to the nation's purity within its selected pure population. In the case of fascism, the nation is imagined as pure, and that it is the moral obligation of the nation to remove anything considered impure, therefore justifying their exclusion whether the reality is true or not. Now, while in real-life history, the exclusion of threats within real-life fascist regimes like the Nazi Party with the Jews, homosexuals, and people of color were based in superficial fear because they were different compared to what Hitler envisioned as pure, therefore making them enemies of the nation, the Quintessons are a different yet similar story. The Quintessons in the film are presented to the audience as the oldest enemies of Cybertron, with them waging war against the Cybertronians and most likely for the reason of harvesting Cybertron's Energon for themselves based on Sentinel Prime's deal with them. And while it is true that we do not know the full story of both species' hatred towards each other, since the film does not present any nuances or additional reasoning for their behavior to suggest their actions are more justifiable or understandable, we can definitely classify them as legitimate threats to Cybertron that any proper fascist would determine they must be excluded. So logically, like any proper fascist, Sentinel Prime would exclude such a threat from Cybertron to prevent them from corrupting the nation's purity, right? Instead, Sentinel not only makes a deal with the Quintessons to overthrow Cybertron's leaders, but also to willfully give away their Energon to them for the last 50 cycles, with the promise of even more in the future.
I know what I promised you, but our minds, they're running out. There's barely enough energy for us. I swear I will get you the rest.
This is not fascist behavior, but rather personal survival behavior. No true fascist would ever bend the knee to their greatest enemy as Sentinel so easily did. One of the core pillars of a fascist's identity is absolute loyalty to the state of power, as it stems from the ideological idea that the nation is dying and must be reborn into something stronger, a goal that can only be achieved through actions such as excluding threats that potentially make the nation weaker. Sentinel, however, betraying Cybertron abandons the fascist ideal of nation rebirth, actively resulting in the nation nation's continued decay through cooperation with its greatest enemy, all only for prioritization of Sentinel's personal survival and ability to live like a king. Although, what exactly does it mean for a nation to be reborn, and how does Sentinel not believe in it? A key factor when identifying true fascism is the idea that fascists are ideologues, not narcissistic opportunists. Even though fascism is ultimately harmful, oppressive, and violent, as history has shown us with regimes like Fascist Italy and the Nazi Party, fascists don't follow an ideological doctrine based on personal ambition or ego, but the nation's need of a rebirth based on 1. The nation is dying, 2. The nation's true identity must be restored, and 3. Drastic measures must be taken to revive the nation's greatness. In their worldview, their greatest atrocities are justified because it will be for the greater good, despite the destructive horrors they bring, that they are the ultimate saviors of a dying nation. Like Hitler, for example, exterminating the Untermensch not only because he saw them as a threat that needed to be excluded, but also because he thought himself as a savior of the master race and Germany that was saving them all for the greater good. This is crucial because it is the direct opposite of what Sentinel's actions and motivations are in the film. He doesn't see himself as a great savior, but as a king who is above the nation and its people, someone who can do whatever he wants with no consequence.
What truth? That I plucked the cogs from your newborn chests? Forced you to mine so that I could pay off the quintessons and live like a king? None of that matters. Because the truth is what I make it.
An admission of his own accord that is anti-ideological because he twists the truth to whatever he personally sees fit at the moment, grounded in personal gain with his desire to live like a king, and completely not nationalistic at all as he directly pays off the quintessons to the detriment of Cybertron. He isn't trying to unify Cybertron or lead it into a rebirth, but instead secure himself and only himself with all the power of Cybertron. If Sentinel truly was an ideologue, he would never have sold out Cybertron to the quintessons and instead taken active measures to bring Cybertron into a new golden age. Like how Megatron at the end of the film united the High Guard together to lead Cybertron into the future and proceed to attempt and destroy Iacon in order to rebirth the planet into a new era devoid of false prophets and no more deception while destroying anyone who gets in his way.
The age of crimes has ended. No more false prophets. Follow me, and you will never again be deceived. Rise up! I will lead us all into the future.
He's gonna kill everyone.
We have to stop him. Come on. No! It's over.
It's over when every last one of his followers is dead.
We could have built the future together.
I'll build it myself after I tear down everyone in my way.
Megatron's actions are based on devotion and loyalty to an ideology of rebirth, that Cybertron is dying and must be united into a new future with him at the helm as its savior, therefore justifying his atrocities of attempting to destroy Iacon and killing countless more of his people, the actions and behaviors of a true fascist, which I do plan on making a video on him and the Decepticons going further into that concept in the future, so stay tuned for that. But Sentinel never had loyalty to an ideology, only loyalty to himself, a truth about his character that is further proven if we analyze his dialogue. Notice how in many of his lines in the movie he will use the possessive adjective my when explaining the reason behind his actions, instead of an adjective that reflects the nation or its people. For example, when he's getting scolded by Alpha Trion, he admits he did what he did for his own future.
I seized an opportunity to take control of my future. Anything to get out of working for you and that boring Council of Elders.
As well as when he orders for the miners to work harder, he uses the words my energon to refer to his own need for it.
Triple time every mining shift. No miner gets a break until I get my energon. All of it. Let's go.
A true fascist, regardless of their harmful ideology, would proclaim their actions and justify their atrocities for the greater good and not for self-centered purposes as Sentinel so proudly proclaimed. Unlike Megatron, all of Sentinel's atrocities were never about the greater good, but for his own greater ambition. So what does that make Sentinel Prime in the end? Well, simply put, a dictator. All power is concentrated towards him and only him, and whatever act he commits has no tether to any ideal other than his own personal ambition. The mentality of a directionless king made him blind to the fact that he could never be taken from the high position he so lavishly engaged in, and ultimately led to his downfall. Well, that was quite a fun analysis. I'm aware the term fascist gets thrown around very blindly and derogatorily without people bothering to learn the specifics of what a fascist or fascism is in general, really. So if you'd like to learn more about it, I've linked some sources in the description below, and if you feel I'm wrong in my assessment of Sentinel Prime, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Until next time, legends.